The sand crunched beneath my boots as I stood staring at the towering silhouette of the abandoned oil rig. It jutted into the night sky, a metallic skeleton wrapped in rust and mystery. The whispering wind carried the scent of sand and iron, but beneath it, there was something else, a faint, acrid tinge that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I couldn't help but think of the stories I'd heard, stories that had convinced everyone but me to stay far away. But I wasn't like everyone else. I was a boss, a filmmaker with an appetite for the unexplored. The more I was told not to go somewhere, the more I felt compelled to dive headfirst into its secrets. This oil rig, abandoned in the heart of the Arabian desert, was perfect for my next project. Its history, marked by tragedy and whispered tales of desert spirits, would make for a haunting, unforgettable documentary. Or so I thought. On our first night there, the crew and I set up our equipment in what was once the rig's main control room. The place was a labyrinth of decay, with creaking metal stairs, broken machinery, and walls stained with the passage of time. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, but my excitement kept me focused. That night, as the others drifted to uneasy sleep, I thumbed through a dusty book I brought along, a collection of tales about jinns and desert spirits. I barely had time to process the chapter on the cursed sands when the silence was shattered by a loud crash. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. A toolbox had fallen from a rack on the far side of the room, its contents scattering across the floor. No one had been near it. My first instinct was to rationalize it. Perhaps the old rack had given way under the weight, but chill in the air told me otherwise. My cameraman, Tark, peered out from his sleeping bag and muttered, "Maybe we shouldn't be here, boss." I laughed it off, though my voice betrayed me. "Come on, Tark. This place is old. Things fall. Let's not get spooked on the first night." The second night brought little comfort. As we reviewed footage from the day's filming, the temperature seemed to drop unnaturally. My breath fogged in front of me, and every creak of the rig echoed louder than it should have. Around 2:45 a.m., I woke with a start, drenched in sweat despite the chill. It wasn't just me. Everyone else had stirred, their faces pale and drawn. No one spoke about it, but I could see the unease growing. By the third night, the desert seemed to be conspiring against us. A sandstorm rolled in, sudden and fierce, as we shot an interview near the base of the rig. The wind howled, whipping the sand into our faces, and we had no choice but to seek shelter. When the storm finally subsided, we stepped out to find the dunes rearranged as if by an unseen hand. That's when we saw it, a skeleton partially unearthed by the storm. Its bleached bones lay tangled in what remained of a tattered jumpsuit, the faded logo of the oil company barely visible. The sight froze us in place. Tark was the first to break the silence. "We need to leave. Now." I nodded, for once agreeing without hesitation. But as we hurried to our vehicles, panic set in. None of them would start. Engines sputtered and coughed, but the machines refused to come to life. It felt like the desert itself was holding us captive. That night, the shadowy figures appeared. At first, I thought my tired eyes were playing tricks on me, but they were real. I saw them, vague, human-like shapes moving among the dunes, just beyond the reach of our flashlights. Every time I tried to focus on one, it would vanish, leaving me questioning my sanity. The others saw them too. Tarek broke down, sobbing, while Layla, our sound engineer, clutched a prayer bead in trembling hands. "Why is this happening?" Layla whispered, her voice breaking. I had no answer. All I knew was that something ancient and angry, had awakened, and it was watching us. By the fifth day, our supplies were running low. Sleep was a distant memory, stolen by the whispers that filled the nights. They started faint, like the rustling of sand, but grew louder with each passing hour. A woman's voice, fragmented and echoing, repeated the same chilling words. "You disturbed our peace." Desperation clawed at me. I decided to try and reach the highway on foot. The others begged me not to go, but staying felt like a slow death. I grabbed a flashlight, my camera, and a bottle of water before setting off. The desert stretched endlessly before me, its dunes like silent sentinels under the pale moonlight. I told myself I would make it, that salvation lay just beyond the horizon. but the horizon never came. The dunes seemed to shift around me, leading me in circles. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around me like a noose. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, and every step felt heavier, as if the sands were pulling me under. My legs gave out before dawn. I collapsed, the flashlight flickering weakly, and clung to my camera like a lifeline. Through the viewfinder, I caught glimpses of the figures, closer now, their hollow eyes fixed on me. The last thing I remember is a hand, cold and skeletal, reaching for me. Days later, my camera was found half buried in the sand. The footage it held was fragmented, a chaotic blur of images and sounds. But one thing was clear, the voice, that haunting, disembodied voice repeating, "You disturbed our peace." I was never seen again. It began under the weight of suffocating heat and an unbearable heaviness in my chest. I signed on for the expedition, believing it would distract me from a void left by my husband's death. The tragedy had struck the very day I agreed to lead the geological survey near an abandoned drilling site in Saudi Arabia's desert. They said it was a freak accident, a cruel twist of fate. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that my decision to embark on this journey was connected somehow. The desert greeted us with silence, its expanse vast and lifeless. We were a small team of 6, tasked with assessing the feasibility of reactivating the defunct oil site. The first few days passed uneventfully, save for the oppressive isolation. Then Amir, one of our engineers, stumbled into a hidden sinkhole. I'll never forget his scream, a sharp, raw sound swallowed almost immediately by the desert's emptiness. We rushed to pull him out. His leg was badly broken, his face pale with pain and terror. He kept muttering about feeling hands beneath the sand, clawing at him as he fell. We dismissed it as shock. Amir was airlifted out the next morning, leaving behind his tools and a palpable unease that settled over the camp like a second sun. On the 5th night, the desert came alive in a way that defied explanation. I was in the operations tent, hunched over a series of data streams, when the wind rose without warning. Sand whipped against the canvas walls like whispers of 1,000 voices, each too faint to decipher. The monitors in front of me blinked, then displayed a cascade of gibberish, symbols I couldn't place, flickering in rhythmic waves. I stepped outside, clutching my flashlight against the storm. The camp was chaos, the sandstorm battering everything in sight. And then I heard it, a distinct murmur threading through the wind, not random, but deliberate, as if the desert itself were speaking. My flashlight caught the outline of something moving beyond the tents, just at the edge of the storm. A shadow, humanoid but wrong, its form bending and distorting like a mirage. When the storm subsided hours later, the camp was in shambles. The others blamed the weather, but I knew what I'd seen or thought I'd seen. I told no one. A week later, disaster struck again. Our supply helicopter had barely lifted off when a thunderstorm, violent and sudden, rolled across the horizon. The skies opened, bolts of lightning tearing to the desert with unnerving precision. One struck the helicopter's tail, forcing an emergency landing. Miraculously, no one was hurt, but the storm vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The next morning, while scouting the crash site, we found them, ancient carvings on a rocky outcrop newly revealed by the storm. The symbols etched into the stone mirrored the gibberish I'd seen on my screens, their lines sharp yet unervingly organic. One phrase stood out, roughly translated by Tarek, our linguist. The cursed sands. Tarek became obsessed. He spent hours examining the carvings, his notes growing increasingly erratic. "They speak of a power older than gods," he whispered to me one evening, his eyes bloodshot. "Something buried beneath us." 2 nights later, he vanished. We searched the desert for hours, calling his name until our voices cracked. Finally, we found him. He lay in the open sand, his body mummified as if time had swallowed him whole. His face, oh God, his face. The look of sheer terror was so vivid, so raw. It was as if he had died mid-scream. His eyes were wide open, staring at something I couldn't see. That was the breaking point. The expedition was called off. The flight out of the desert was silent, each of us wrapped in our own terror. The whispers, though, stayed with me, even as the helicopter soared above the dunes. I swore I could hear them, faint but persistent. I left the desert, but it never left me. In the months that followed, I tried to return to normalcy, but the whispers found their way into my dreams. They would start as faint murmurs, then grow louder, more insistent, until I woke drenched in sweat. The symbols and the carvings would flash before my eyes when I closed them, haunting me in their incomprehensibility. I tried to rationalize it, to attribute everything to stress and trauma, but the whispers wouldn't let me. Sometimes, in the stillness of my home, I could swear I felt the desert's heat against my skin, a phantom breeze carrying the faint scent of sand. I started researching the site, delving into old records and local legends. The stories were sparse, fragmented, but they all spoke of the same thing: a curse tied to the sands, a power that lay dormant until disturbed. I haven't told anyone what I found. I wouldn't know where to start, and I doubt anyone would believe me. But late at night, when the whispers return, I wonder the desert is calling me back. I can feel it waiting, patient and vast, just beyond the edges of my reality. And deep down, I know one thing for certain: the desert doesn't forget,